welcome to the newest episode of the Rice Crypto Show. Today I am joined by Mike in Space. He is the creator of Bitcoin Stamps and the SRC20 protocol. And we are going to be talking about this art experiment that allows for the creation of NFTs, meme coins, and more on the Bitcoin blockchain. Before we get into it, take time to visit my website at ricetvx.com. There you can sign up for my mailing list so you can stay up to date on all things Rice. Once you've signed up for my mailing list, you will find links for my channels and socials towards the top of the website. Make sure you are subscribed to both of my YouTube channels, Rice Against the Grain and Rice TVX. If you want to support my work directly, as well as get early access, exclusive content for both channels, plus more, join my Patreon. I will include links in the video description for everything I just mentioned, as well as everything shared on today's video. All right, ladies and gentlemen, joining me on today's episode of the Rice Crypto Show is a first-time guest. I am joined by Mike in Space, and he is the Bitcoin Stamps creator. Some might know the Bitcoin Stamps from the SRC20. These are NFTs, inscriptions, and much more on the Bitcoin blockchain. I hope I said that right, Mike.
Yeah, we can get into it. It's pretty close, yep.
Okay, cool. Because I mean, all this is really new to me as far as NFTs on Bitcoin. And I know it's been really disruptive to the Bitcoin community in a lot of ways, good and positive and negative, depending on whose perspective you're looking at this from. But Mike, if you don't mind, for people who might be unfamiliar with you, aside from the fact that you are the creator of Stamps, do you mind introducing yourself to everybody and also explaining when and how you got involved in Bitcoin and crypto?
Yeah, no problem. So I'm Mike in Space. Twitter personality, I guess. I've had a history of making various YouTube videos. I've been involved in Bitcoin since 2013. So quite a while. I got involved with Counterparty. Counterparty is sort of a NFT protocol, an old school one that's been around for quite a while. Got involved with that around 2017. I'm a Rare Pepe artist. I had a Rare Pepe in the series. Very proud of that. And yeah, I've been involved with NFTs to greater or lesser extent since around 2017. Really just a creative endeavor. Worked within the Counterparty community for a number of years, and just recently with the advent of Ordinals. We just thought we could do something new with some old technology on Counterparty, and that kind of birthed Bitcoin Stamps.
Okay, very cool. Speaking of Counterparty, I mean, this is kind of an older OG technology that kind of seemed to have faded away. What happened to the platform and the token? The token was XCP?
XCP, yeah. So, I mean, it's always been there. I know a lot of new Bitcoiners, a lot of new people in crypto have never heard of Counterparty. But it's always been there. It's a small community, but it's a tight, passionate community of artists and developers. And yeah, so Rare. If you've heard of Rare Pepe, that started on Counterparty, and I think what happened is that with the advent of Ordinals, people started saying, "Well, wow, we have Bitcoin, we have NFTs on Bitcoin for the first time," not really realizing that there is this whole history where there have technically been NFTs on Bitcoin since 2014 on Counterparty. Yeah, so I mean, there's a long, interesting history there. There was this thing called the op return wars that happened a few years back, where the Bitcoin core developers were fighting with the Counterparty developers over the size of the op return, and it just seems like time is a flat circle. We're seeing that all again with Ordinals now. You know, there's a lot of, there's these threats of censoring Ordinals by certain core devs on the mailing list. So it's kind of funny how these things happen in cycles.
I definitely want to get into that too. I mean, Counterparty and the Omni layer, they're kind of two things that have kind of faded away. And in a way, what's happening with the stamps and ordinals is nothing. There's nothing new under the sun, I guess I should
Right.
say.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, what exactly and everything that I have screen shared, I will have linked down below in the video description. So I definitely encourage people, if they want to follow you, to check out your Twitter account, and you've got a GitHub that's pretty detailed with a lot of information. But the first thing that I would like to ask you, that I'm sure most people are curious about, aside from the fact that these things are called secure tradable art maintained securely, which is what stamps stand for, what
That's
exactly?
Let
Go
me just
ahead.
interrupt you. Yeah, that came from an article. I think it's wrong. It's secure tradable art maintained permanently stamp. Um, yeah, they kind of
Okay,
screwed that
okay,
up in
my
there.
bad,
Go
my
ahead.
bad.
It's not your bad. They
Well,
messed it up in the article.
can you repeat what that is again?
It's a secure tradable art maintained permanently.
Maintained permanently. Okay, okay, that makes a lot of sense. So, is stamps and or are stamps and SRC20 tokens the same thing?
So the closest equivalent would be Ordinals and BRC20. So if anyone who's familiar with Ordinals, it started off predominantly art on the blockchain, and then a community member figured out a way to create a fungible token layer on top of Ordinals. And so we've kind of copied that. BRC20 has been extremely successful, and we kind of figured it's going to happen. Someone's going to create it on our protocol. It might as well be us. So we created the SRC20 protocol. It's basically a fungible token layer that sits on top of Bitcoin stamps.
Okay. Yeah, that is very, very confusing. So, but the way that you explained it makes sense as far as ordinals and BRC20s
Yeah.
and stamps and SRC20s. So, ordinals are, what is the difference in between the S? I'm a little bit confused. The SRC20s, are they for token creation and stamps are for NFTs?
Yes, it's all of the above. I think it's still very early on, particularly even in the BRC ecosystem, where you see this. There's a lot of speculation going on right now. People deploying, minting these BRC20 tokens, and not really having a use case yet. But we're already seeing things happening like staking getting built into there, and various things like DAOs being constructed. So, I mean, I think honestly, right now it's a bit of a speculative mania
Okay.
happening. It's sort of looking for a use case, but yeah, at the base, it is ultimately an art project. That's how Ordinal started, and that's really how Stamp started as well. It's about art on the blockchain.
So I mean, it's an experiment. We're all
Yeah.
witnessing a live experiment, and so I mean, the reason I was asking that question the way I did was because from this article at the bitcoinmanual.com, it talks about in inscriptions being NFTs, BRC20 tokens being a fixed supply of meme coins, the ORC20 tokens, which I'm not sure what that is, if that's
I haven't even
ordinals.
looked into that myself. I don't know what
Okay.
ORC20 is.
And then the SRC. So it's like
Yeah.
it gets a little bit confusing as to, but basically it's so new that you could create tokens, you could create NFTs. They're basically token representations of whatever you want to create them to be, from what
Yeah,
I'm.
exactly. So
Okay.
I for your audience, I would say whatever you can do on BRC20, you can do with SRC20. That's the
Okay.
easiest way I can explain it.
Okay, that makes sense. All right. So how do stamps guarantee greater permanence than other protocols? Because we're seeing the conversation being brought up that I want to talk about later about banning ordinals or BRC20 tokens. So how do stamps guarantee that greater permanence?
Right. So what it comes down to is we store the data within the UTXO set. The UTXO set is a piece of the blockchain that needs to be persistent across all nodes, full nodes, prune nodes, pre-segwit nodes, post-segwit nodes. With and what this means is that the data persists across the entire ecosystem of nodes. It can't be removed from the blockchain. Now, when you contrast that with how Ordinals works, they store the data in what's called the witness data. And there's a benefit for doing this. By storing the data there, they do get what's called a witness discount. So they're able to put the data on chain at a reasonable price. The thing is that that data, once it's validated, it can be discarded. So the way it works is when you bootstrap a full node, um, the node starts downloading the blockchain data. And once it validates the witness part, it can safely discard that data. The problem there is there go your inscriptions, right? So um, the the core difference between ordinals and stamps is that the data persists across all nodes with stamps, while with ordinals, it's a lot easier to discard that data. And we're already seeing some moves towards that within the Bitcoin core devs on the mailing list. They're already talking about ways of removing that data from the initial block download.
Yeah, and I guess since you brought it up, we can go ahead and discuss that for a moment. What I want to make sure that I'm understanding is the ordinals are stored in segregated witness data,
Yep,
and then the way that stamps are stored, they're directly on Bitcoin's UTXOs, which is the unspent transaction outputs.
exactly.
Okay, what is a UTXO for people that are unfamiliar with that terminology, even like myself? Aside
Right.
from the fact that it's unspent transaction outputs.
Right. Well, I mean, basically, the concept of a Bitcoin doesn't really exist. All that really exists are unspent outputs. So you have these. When I send you some Bitcoin, there's inputs there, and then there are outputs, and then those outputs become inputs on your end. So so basically, the idea with stamps is we're basically storing the data within those outputs themselves, and that requires that nodes keep that data within the UTXO set.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It makes, I mean, even from a technical perspective, the way you explained it makes a lot of sense because it's very techy when you get down to it.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts with this article and the idea that anybody wants to censor data on the Bitcoin blockchain?
Well, see, the way I've always seen it is that Bitcoin is meant to be permissionless, and now we have some gatekeepers who are saying you're using Bitcoin the wrong way. With both ordinals and stamps, I wouldn't see a lot of the core developers and community members within the maxi camp are basically calling it spam. But we're paying the miner fees, and really that's the anti-spam mechanism of Bitcoin, right? If you're paying a fee, it's not spam. So really, they just disagree with how we're using Bitcoin, even though it's totally protocol compliant, fees are being paid. It's just, you know, they're trying to gatekeep how Bitcoin is used.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because it definitely to me brings some new excitement back to Bitcoin, which I think is much needed when Bitcoin has just kind of remained dormant as kind of like a store of value, which makes it very, I mean, very boring. I mean, not that money or currency is exciting to begin with, but
Well, I mean, there's a practical reason here as well. Next year, we have the halving. The block subsidy gets cut in half. And it was starting to become a concern to a lot of people in the community. Like either the price has to double or the amount, or, people need to start using this with different use cases. And we've seen recently in the last few weeks with ordinals in particular, it's like the fees have now exceeded the subsidy itself. So I mean that's going to ebb and flow over time, but it shows that we might need these other use cases besides, a settlement layer for money in order to pay the miners to keep the network secure.
yeah, no, I agree. I agree. I mean, I think personally, I think it's a good thing. And it's really sad to see how the community's kind of gotten divided over it. And I'm not really sure what the purpose is. I mean, even something like upcoming, I want to be in Miami We're recording this on the 15th of May, but I'm going to be releasing it in just a couple of days. So, and we're recording it in the evening of the 15th. So I'll be in Miami, and the Bitcoin conference is known for kind of being a Bitcoin maxi event, very, very Bitcoin focused. And it seems as if since Bitcoin Magazine has been pro Ordinals, and I don't even know if they put out their own Ordinals, that they've almost been
Yeah,
shunned
yeah, exactly. They
shunned by
did the
the Bitcoin
covers.
maxis.
I mean, it's not surprising to me, but yeah, it is what it is. Yeah, they did a series of ordinals, all the covers of their magazines on as inscriptions, and yeah, it was a neat use case, but it upset a lot of people.
That it did. And with one thing that we were talking about before we started recording, and one thing I want to put a lot of attention to with this whole this art experiment that we're seeing, that we're witnessing, and that could result in much more than just an art experiment, but the data itself for these NFTs is stored on chain versus, and I'm asking this with a question mark after,
Yep.
versus Ethereum and a lot of these other NFT protocol, or have NFTs on their protocols, which are basically a proof of IPFS or AWS storage. Is that correct? That it's stored
Yeah,
on chain?
that's correct, and that's even the case with Counterparty and pretty well everything up until Ordinals. I mean, there were some other cases like with BSV, they do it on chain as well, but the typical NFT on Ethereum is just like a pointer to AWS or IPFS. So yeah, I think this, and that's why there's this excitement now, where I think it's basically delivering the promise that people always expected NFTs to be. Like, a lot of people are surprised to find out, oh, it's not on chain. It's just a pointer to, someone's server. And for the first time, now we're really delivering on that promise.
And that's a big thing. And that's, knowing and hearing you say that these could have been done. Now, I know it's a limitation with how much data can be stored on each particular
Yeah,
stamp, I guess.
it gets expensive, right? You can make them as big as you want. I mean, there are certain limits. I mean, the block is only so big, etc. But yeah, it really comes down to cost. But basically, the thing is, a lot of the NFT market, if you look at it, it's pixel art. You look at CryptoPunks, it's pixel art. A lot of the derivatives and a lot of the others, and we found that, well, you can do pixel art pretty affordably, because it's a simple kind of art format. And so that's how we basically started with stamps, where the first 1,000 or so is all just pixel art, and we can store those on chain pretty compactly. And from there, we kind of grew out into other formats, but that's sort of our core format. And we've seen a lot of experimentation, and it's still growing.
Awesome, man. I've got a friend of mine, Johnny, who works over at Hit Network and Bitcoin Crypto. He's been diving hardcore into the ordinals and stamps for a couple months now. And so he was somebody that I wanted to ask if he had a couple questions of you, and which I don't normally do, but he had some really good questions. And one of the questions was, we've recently seen Bitcoin fees rise to 2-year highs due to ordinals. Using the stamps protocol has an even higher cost to inscribe. Yep. Do you think these higher fees will be a barrier to entry? And is there anything that could be done to work on those higher fees?
So it's a trade-off. So basically, the reason why you get this discount with ordinals is that it's stored within this discardable witness data, while we're storing it within the UTXO set. We're paying full price here, right? So basically, you're paying for permanence. You can either put your art within the witness data, and basically nodes can validate it and throw it away. New nodes don't even have to look at it. Pre-SegWit nodes will never even see it in the first place, right? But with stamps, it persists across every node: a prune node, a full node, a pre-SegWit node, a post-SegWit node. It's going to be there in the UTXO set. It's going to be there in the blockchain data. So that's what you're paying for. You're paying for this immutability, this permanence is going to be there in 100 years.
And maybe because that's what I was going to ask a little, was a question of like, why didn't we see something like a Bored Ape Yacht Club or even CryptoPunks being created on Bitcoin instead of using basically a proof of AWS or a proof of IPFS. It doesn't make sense, but when you're limited on how much art and how much it costs, and then it kind of makes sense as far as
Yeah.
the experiment goes.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is the community as well. I think obviously the Ethereum community has been far more welcoming to various use cases, and Bitcoin is a little bit narrower focused. And I mean, you know what? I love Bitcoin. That's fine. The monetary use case is very important as well. I would like to see, a few other things on chain. I've been in the Counterparty community for many years, and I like doing things with my Bitcoin, rather than just seeing an account balance.
I want to come back to that as maybe one of the last questions is like, what kind of other experiments that you're thinking about or foresee. But as far as marketplaces, minting, wallet suggestions, I know we have, and I'll pull this up on, so we have this up on screen. Let me go to the website. And that is stampchain.io. This is since you're the creator of stamps, this is your particular explorer, right?
Yeah, but it is an explorer. It basically surfaces the data, and there are multiple explorers, right? So it's an open protocol. Anyone can build an explorer, we present the data that's on chain. What you're seeing right now is a lot of SRC20s. Basically, that's kind of overwhelmed the whole system in the last week or so.
Okay, and as I scroll down, we see some that has some artwork. Are they also considered SR20s as well?
No, I mean, so what basically we are applying
SRC20 is what I meant. Sorry.
The reason you're seeing artwork here is we are applying artwork behind the token just to give it a little bit more pizzazz. Like if you go to ordinals.com, it's literally just strings of data on a black screen. And so we just felt, it'll look a little nicer if we just allow the protocol, the token creators to submit some artwork, and we'll put that behind it just to make it look a little bit more lively.
Yeah, this ordinals.com looks like some sort of AI language or something. It's insane, and it's so small that I had to magnify just to be able to read what even some of this says. But it's just inscriptions, right?
Yep.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so let me go back to where I was. I was at the I have so many tabs here. I was at the stamp chain, and then we have the rare stamp.xyz is another explorer as well.
Yeah, there's about 4 explorers at this point. They're all surfacing the same data, the same numbering scheme. So we're up to about 30,000 stamps at this point. Not a lot compared to Ordinals. Ordinals is over 5 million, but it's still early for stamps. Good time to get in at this point. What you're seeing here is the earliest stamps. 0 and 1 is up on screen. Those are the laser eyes, I call them. Those I'm into those 2 at the beginning.
Okay, now I get that. I thought they were like just Swiss crosses or something like that.
Yeah, well, we use a scaling technique to kind of make them big on screen, and they kind of get blocky as you increase them in size, and they kind of look like crosses.
Yeah, no, that makes sense though, now that you explained it. But I wanted to do the comparison here with both these explorers, since you said that Rare Stamp shows it from the earliest versions as opposed to the newest. Whereas if people were to go to stampchain.io, you're going to see the newest ones, which a lot of it is just these boring looking inscriptions that you're seeing.
Exactly. If you scroll to the very top, there's a button that says end, I believe, or last, and you can click there and get right to the beginning.
See how long it's going to take me.
We really need to re-architect this because we did not build it for 30,000 stamps. You know what I mean? In the beginning, you kind of build a website and then it just grows out of control. So we definitely need to re-architect it a bit.
For some reason, the last one, these buttons aren't, just so you know, they're not working.
They probably take a minute, there we go.
Yeah,
it's just a lag.
And then I clicked them so many times that it's going to go right away. So impatient. Let me try this again.
Yeah, no, definitely we need to look at scaling because it's basically grown out of the original concept.
I mean, I find it to be very fascinating. So would this be the very, very first one that was on Stamps website?
Those are
Stamp.
earlier. You've skipped back a bit, so yeah, those are definitely some of the earlier ones. And as you can see, it's more art rather than the SRC20 tokens. And yeah, our core focus typically is pixel art, just because pixel art compresses very well, and it's a lot less expensive to put on chain rather than like a photorealistic image.
Okay. No, that makes sense. That totally makes sense. Do you think that do you think that there's going to be a possibility that there would be any success in trying to, I guess the best way to put it would be in layman's terms, ban the BRC20 tokens, and that may bring some more attention to what Stamps is doing?
Right. So I mean, it's a lot more difficult to ban stamps. I'm not going to say it's impossible, because there's various things they're talking about, like UTXO, which is a way of basically getting rid of the UTXO set entirely. I think that's many years off. I think it's still sort of like exploratory at this point. But yeah, removing inscriptions is a present day thing. You can do that right now. When you IBD a brand new node, you can discard those inscriptions. Like that's a present day concern. The core devs are talking about, implementing further filtering and censoring policies. So yeah, at this point in time, I'm confident in saying that Stamps has a far greater persistence of data than inscriptions, and I don't think that's really debatable. I mean, I've we've had many discussions on Twitter Spaces, and it really comes down to that. I mean, the way we're storing the data is just a lot more difficult to remove.
No, I like it. I like it because I mean,
Yeah,
obviously, I'm sure that the core developers, if anybody is upset with Ordinals and BRC20s, I'm sure they feel the same way with Stamps. But if
worse. Yeah, yeah,
Stamps is in a sense immutable until you can
yeah.
get rid of the UTXO, which we don't obviously see happening anytime soon.
Yeah, it's re-architecting Bitcoin in a major way. Like they talk sometimes they talk about these vaporware methods as if they're coming out tomorrow. And realistically, the speed at which Bitcoin moves, it's like, yeah, maybe in 20 years, but it's like I'm not confident that, like, even if UTXO comes out, that it's going to be widely adopted across the ecosystem.
Right, right. No, I agree. I agree. Are there any particular wallets, whether mobile or web, that you suggest for being able to store stamps
So
and
right.
SRC20s?
So right now, the main wallet is freewallet.io. It's an old school counterparty wallet. It's a very functional wallet, but it is very dated. So we are working on partnerships with some other parties. We've already seen integration into Hero Wallet. We're talking with Xverse, Ordinals Wallet, and a few marketplaces as well. Yeah, there you go. There's Free Wallet. Free Wallet works. It's fine, but it is very dated. It's sort of like a web wallet within like an iOS container. It hasn't been updated since like 2016.
So like the
But
early day wallets, like
yeah, exactly. Because
okay.
I mean, ultimately we are built on Counterparty. We Stamps basically uses Counterparty as plumbing at this point. Like we kind of sit above it. And yeah, we are working on more modern tooling.
Okay, very cool. Let me see here. I think I have just a few more questions in regards to stamps. One was, let me get back to my main screen here so I can have everything pulled up right. Okay, so here we go. This is another question from my friend Johnny is with such little block space to work with, do you really see BRC and SRC tokens being able to leverage DeFi principles?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think, you know what? I don't think anyone thought you could even do BRC at the beginning. Like they're already I saw something on Twitter earlier today about staking being added to BRC20. So I think a lot of these concepts will come like from Ethereum. Will like there isn't like I don't know if you can do everything you can do on Ethereum, because it's not what's the word they use, Turing complete. Bitcoin
Okay.
isn't Turing complete like Ethereum, but you might be able to do some simple smart contract things that are what the market needs. Like maybe you can't maybe you don't have every bell and whistle, but it seems like marketplaces exist for ordinals. You can trade them. You can have them represent real world objects, just as you could in the Ethereum ecosystem. On Counterparty, there's atomic swaps where you send Bitcoin and you get back a token in a trustless manner. So I think a lot of the things that you can do in Ethereum land, you probably could do in Bitcoin. I just think there's a lot of tooling missing. Like, we don't have a MetaMask on Bitcoin really, and so like the community really needs to build up the tooling in order to make it happen.
And that makes sense. I would love to see something similar or comparable to MetaMask for Bitcoin. Obviously not MetaMask itself, but something very comparable. A
single sign-on is very powerful. You know, a lot for all the, you know, Ethereum's a shit coin, this and that, you know, the maxi, but a single sign-on is a very powerful innovation, and it would be great if Bitcoin had that.
Now, when I mentioned DeFi, I'm not sure if it was just it's late at night, you're a father, you're tired. Are you not excited about the idea of DeFi on Bitcoin?
Not that I'm not excited about it. I think it's possible. I think there's probably a lot of hype around DeFi. I think you can do a lot of the things that DeFi promises already. Just maybe on like. So okay, so with Ethereum, you've got like Uniswap, right? Could you build that on Bitcoin? Maybe. I'm not sure. Maybe it would need to be a bit more centralized.
Yeah.
There's going to be different trade-offs, right? There's always this like trade-off with centralization and utility and
scalability of the blockchain trilemma. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay, so before we get into like kind of what some of the things that you're imagining, experimenting with, and diving more into Counterparty, and not keeping the interview going too much longer, I wanted to get your thoughts on, because I found out just recently, yesterday, that we have Litecoin now introducing LTC20s, which being a Bitcoin code fork, it makes sense to doing something. And to me, it would it just makes sense to do stamps and ordinals on Litecoin. I get why people are doing it on Bitcoin, but it seems like Litecoin has that more throughput, more storage. Maybe you could do higher quality artwork and be able to get, you know, I'm not sure. I don't know.
Well, forget about Litecoin. We're already seeing stamps on Doge. They've already started a project like that where you could do it really, you could put really big files there, and it just costs a few pennies. So, I mean, what it comes down
that's interesting because the merge mining with Doge and Litecoin, though, it's interesting. Yeah. Have you heard of any other blockchains besides Doge and Litecoin doing this?
No, I know Litecoin has done, I think, something like Ordinals. I don't know if they've done anything comparable to stamps. They might have. I just haven't heard about it. But definitely with Doge, what it comes down to is like
it's all UTXO coins, though. Basically,
it is. But I mean, ultimately, what it comes down to is immutability into the future. It's like, Litecoin will probably be around, but I mean, in my heart of hearts, I think Bitcoin is going to be, you know, the blockchain that outlasts them all, right? So if you have something memorable, something special, a piece of art, you want to put it on the most immutable blockchain. And in my view, that's Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get down to the nitty gritty of it, I would definitely agree with you. Do you consider, now, just since I brought this up, and I don't mean this in any sort of negative way, do you consider yourself more of a Bitcoin maximalist versus a crypto minimalist?
Yeah, you know what? I was in the maxi camp for many years. You know, I do consider myself a Bitcoiner. I really didn't start dabbling into anything besides Bitcoin until about 2021, when Ethereum was just everywhere, and it's like you couldn't not play around with Ethereum. But I mean, I'm still excited about Bitcoin and building on Bitcoin. I think really like basically like you want to be in the biggest market. You want to. I'd rather work on Bitcoin rather than some other coin that might have, you know, some more bells and whistles. But ultimately, what's attractive about Bitcoin is that immutable layer, and that's where you want to build.
Okay. Now I appreciate you explaining it. And like I said, I don't have a problem with either philosophy because it's all freedom of choice, and I appreciate people having that freedom of choice.
Well, that's the thing. I have no problem either. It's like, yeah, go build whatever you want on whatever coin you want. I don't have a problem with that. Personally, I just like Bitcoin more. But yeah, it's like, let a thousand flowers bloom. That's fine.
Let a thousand flowers bloom. Okay, so you mentioned Counterparty being the plumbing for stamps, right?
Yep.
For people that are unfamiliar, how would you describe what Counterparty is?
Right. So Counterparty is a named asset system. So what you can do, or at least how it was originally envisioned, is that you could go to Counterparty and you could register a name. Like you could register Nike or Coca-Cola or whatever. And you could basically have like a decentralized stock market. I think that was sort of the original concept of Counterparty. What happened years later is NFTs kind of got grafted on. So someone decided to make Rare Pepe and some other fun series, and they used this named system and they added artwork to it, and NFTs were born. So Counterparty has been used in a lot of different ways over the years, and the most recent thing is Bitcoin Stamps and SRC20, and we're just it's kind of like it's old technology, but it's like it still works. It has a really passionate community of developers and artists, and there's actually a lot you can do there. So I just find it fascinating that's still around after all these years, and have a lot of friends in that space. So
me too. Well, me too, and I thought it was done. Like I really did. When I heard about Ordinals,
no, everyone think I mean
Counterparty.
everyone either thinks it's dead or aren't even aware that it existed in the first place, but it's been alive through this whole time. Like I've been involved with Counterparty on and off since 2017, and it's always been there. There's always been the decks where people have been trading Rare Pepes and making new art. Fake Rares is like a recent a series that's sort of based on Rare Pepe, and there's been a lot happening there, particularly since 2021 when NFTs kind of exploded. There's a lot of vibrant communities and artwork on Counterparty.
When someone creates a token on Counterparty, is that what color coins are, or is that a different technology?
Yeah, no, color coins was something else. That might have even been pre-Counterparty. I forget, that's old. I'm not even quite sure how that works, but with Counterparty, it's basically you register it's almost like a ticker. It's like you have, like I said, you could register the name of a company, you could register your own name, you could register Rare Pepe, and
it had an exchange built into it. So
exactly.
Like, so it's almost like, in a sense, the white paper design of what Veritasium was trying to create with the peer-to-peer capital market, basically.
Yeah. What's amazing is you can do these atomic swaps on Counterparty. Like you could do this since 2015 or whenever. It's like it's a lot of people aren't aware of the capabilities of these systems that have been built on Bitcoin that most Bitcoiners are really not even aware exist.
No, I agree. And it's good to know that Counterparty is still around. So what exactly, as one of the last questions, what exactly is your current involvement with Counterparty? And do you know if there's any plans for any sort of like promotion or marketing, or does it matter?
So, I mean, it's an open platform, and we're building stamps on Counterparty, and we're leveraging the tooling, and we're seeing what we can do there. There's a lot you can do there, and we're taking advantage of it.
Okay. Well, so since you said there's a lot that we can do there, as the last question, aside from giving you a chance for the final thoughts, is in a perfect world, where everything goes without any problem, what kind of things would you imagine experimenting on Bitcoin doing? I'm just curious about that since you mentioned it.
So in a perfect, Are you talking about like use cases? Like
Just in general, like some of the things that you've thought about that could be done using Bitcoin, using the Bitcoin blockchain.
right. Well, I mean, the biggest thing I think it's the freedom of money. It's being able to, you know, it's control the money across borders, right? You can basically take your entire life savings, 12 words in your head, or even like a brain wallet, right? So it's freedom money. It's the oldest use case. It's the best use case. I'm excited about these other things, like because they're fun. Like stamps are fun, but ultimately the core value is still that it's freedom money.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. It's a good way of putting it. It's a really good way of putting it. And I mean, I think when we can imagine doing things that are beneficial, that are conducive with what can be done on Bitcoin, I think we should consider that. And that's where I kind of consider myself a crypto minimalist and not more of a maximalist, because I feel that there is a need for other cryptocurrencies. We just definitely don't need the amount of cryptocurrency
Right.
projects that we have out there right now. Because I don't think something like Chainlink would work on a Bitcoin blockchain. And it
Right.
makes sense for what Chainlink is doing for it to be on the Ethereum blockchain on another chain.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, you look at something like Monero. I mean, it definitely has carved out a use case. It's used in dark markets, and it can do things that maybe Bitcoin isn't best suited for. So I definitely think while we don't need 1,000 cryptocurrencies, like yeah, maybe we need three. Like that seems reasonable.
okay. I love it, man. Okay. Well, again, man, I really appreciate you taking time to do this, especially on such short notice, being a father and having a lot going on during the day. Too bad I'm not going to be able to meet you in person over at Bitcoin Miami, but I'd love to get you back on for another show and follow the journey of what happens with this whole art experiment that you helped to create, man. Which I really appreciate you doing that, man. And
Great.
I'm sure the rest of the community does as well.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. This has been wonderful.
Yeah, no problem. And to wrap things up, was there anything I didn't cover that you wanted to touch base on, or any final thoughts before we do wrap up today?
Yeah, I would say have a little fun. Bitcoin is a serious place, and it is serious to a certain extent, but I think fun is have fun having fun. That it used to be like have fun staying poor. My slogan is have fun having fun.
Or put the fun in the non-fungible and on
There you
Bitcoin?
go. There you
Yeah.
go. That's perfect.
I love it, man. Okay, well, if you could bear with me 1 second, just going to do the wrap up of the recording.
Yeah.
So I will have links down below for everything that we talked about on today's show. If you have any questions for a future episode, definitely comment them down below in the video. If you're not subscribed here at Rice TVX, I ask, what are you waiting for? And I also would encourage you to make sure you subscribe to my other channel, Rice Against the Grain. And before we wrap things up, I want to leave you with this. I encourage you, as always, to be a blessing to others. Treat people how you want to be treated. Be the glitch that you want to see in the matrix. Be the change that you want to see in this world. And until next time, practice change.